Yeah. Okay, folks, you can pretty well guess what's going to happen now. But before I get going, I got some things I got to share with you. There's Ben and Shelby and Ruby in Georgia. And they're the family that is going to take over. In other words, they're dang sure committed to doing things right with horses. And I think it's pretty neat. So if Ruby chooses to go with the cowboying deal, she'll be the one to carry it on. She's kind of short right now, but eventually. But I can't tell you how proud I am of them as a family, because they're trying to do everything right. And they're good hands. And I know that Shelby, every time I do something, she takes it on as a personal challenge. And that's kind of the point here. So, anyway, I've been working this horse probably 3 or 4 times since I seen you last on the logs. And he's getting the idea. And I had people get a hold of me about the flag and the dressage whip and tapping on the shoulder and different ways of doing it. Well, my answer is that if that works for you, have at it. But I don't want to use it unless I have to. If I got some 9-year-old dink that can't get out of his tracks, I'll take a flag and I'll get him moving. But I really don't want to use anything unless I have to. So I'm after the feel, not for the mechanical side. I'm just going to work this horse and show you where I'm at. I'm standing in the center because I'd mentioned that when I first started this. That when this is over, you can get them to side pass staying in one place. If you have to get up alongside of them and walk them around, that's fine. Now you watch what this horse's head does. That's the conversation. There's not a fly out here right now. And what that is that colt thing. And that's why I'm telling you, I don't get in a big hurry to ride this horse. Because he's still got a brain that's immature. And rather than him rooting and pushing on my hands on his back, I'm getting this taken care of here. Not to say he ain't going to go through it when I get on him. But this is what I call a feel. And I want to do less and less over time. Now if you can imagine, when he's working on a ranch and I'm in a gate or in an alley or tying cattle down and I need him to get out of the way, I'm going to be able to move him just by getting on the pressure side and moving my horse. But that's a horse talking to you right there. He don't have a tick in his ear. Which reminds me, Hereford cattle, where I worked in Julian, California, the ticks are unbelievable down there. And I know there's parts of the country that have a lot of ticks. And what I had to do was, you could see a cow, they'd dry a cow up. She'd bum her calf just because of the ticks that tear her down so bad. And they'd walk down the trail doing that with their head. So I'd rope them and tie them down. Then pour mineral oil in the up ear. And let it set for a minute. Then roll them over and bang their head on the ground. All the ticks would fall out of their ears. Then you had to do the same on the other side. But there'd be hundreds of ticks come out of them animals' ears. It was terrible. Well, this horse hadn't got any ticks. This is going into pressure. I'm asking him to move. This is why it's called a feel. He gets it. How enthused he is irrelevant. Now, I'm going to walk the front end through and the rear end around onto the next pole. So I'll come into the eye. He steps over. Boom. Get in the other eye. And I want him to figure out not to hit the pole with his right hind foot. You see how he's paying attention? Now in time, he'll cross his front and his hinds when he gets this down. Right now, a big part of his brain is saying, I don't really care for any of this. Telling him, here it comes. Here it comes. Here it comes. Hindquarter. Forehand. Log. Forehand. Hindquarter. That time he paid attention where his hind feet were. Log. Hindquarter. Forehand. Log. So there you go, Miss Georgia. Now, on that note, you know I've been checking fence, so I guess I probably should share with you. I got a couple notices from the Sagebrush Telegraph. And those of you out west know what that is. But there's the federal government passed a law, evidently, and it's punishable by jail time or fines if you break the law. And the new law is that it's illegal to make a honeydew list. So I just thought I'd share that with America. Some of you men probably haven't heard about it because your brides kept it kind of quiet, but I'm telling you, it's a federal offense now. So ladies, please, we don't want you going to jail. And while we're on the subject, I figured out how to solve this shipping fever virus, whatever it is. For those of you that remember, you're going to appreciate how I figured out how to solve all our Corona deal problems. Because all we got to do is recharge them dipping vats. And I know there's still some around the country. But if you remember what that stuff smelled like in them dipping vats, it'll cure anything. I don't care what it is. But when you do it, if you can probably get 10 cents a head on the humans running through it, but make sure the guy running the pole like we had to do, their head has to go all the way under. But anyway, I just thought I'd share that with you because it's pretty simple cure for the whole Corona deal. All right.
But then don't you lose all your hair?
No.
Of course, then you wouldn't have to get a haircut.
That's right. No, you don't. But I remember that smell, I'll guarantee you. And then ivermectin changed the whole deal about dipping vats. But what I want to show you, and for those of you that are interested in Spade Bit horses, I think you can appreciate why I'm not riding this horse. I've still got a time to get him right in the brain before I climb on him. So those of you that have 8, 9, 10-year-old horses and you're coming in the back door on this deal, don't get discouraged. You're still going to be able to go to a half-breed. But for me to make a spade bit horse, personally, if you can graduate from a half-breed to a spade, that's fine. It's just somatics is all we're talking about. But this is why I need to get all this stuff taken care of on the ground so that I can have the lightest possible hackamore horse that I can ride. And then, oh, by the way, he'll get a spade down the road. That's why the feel is more important than the flag or the dressage whip. This is, in fact, a mechanical tool, but I can not use it really quick. I don't have to put it down. like a flag or a whip. They know the difference, folks. So now the next exercise is called rear end, front end, and I'm just going to show you how it's done. And it's moving right along. Now the exercise I'm going to show you, some folks do it before this. I chose on this colt to do this first and then do this next one. And it's up to you. After you watch it, you'll see what I mean. But moving right along, I want to show you the next exercise. Well, folks, this is that rear end, front end thing I'm telling you about. And once again, it's just as much for the human as it is for the horse. But I've got the eye going on so I can step the horse over. Now what you want to do is you pick something straight ahead of you. I've got a post down there. And the object is to walk in the straightest possible line you can forward. Feet can't stop. Move the hind quarter over. Front end across. Hind quarter over. Front end across. And keep walking. Hind quarter. Forehand. Hind quarter. Forehand. Hind. Forehand. That's the exercise. Now I'm going to head right straight for Deb. And I want you to know that you're going to do this. And what everybody does is ends up chasing the lead rope. So let me show you now how this works. If the tail of the rope is in your right hand, you put it under the rope. Under and switch. Under and switch. I try to get the forehand to cross over at least once. Now another mistake people make is they let their horse go past their shoulder. Horse can't go past here, because then you'll end up chasing you can't be in a straight line. Hind quarter, forehand. Try to get it on a loose rein. Hind quarter, reaching for the eye, forehand, which is why I originally reached for the eye, for those of you who are curious. Forehand. Now this is still on a tight rein going this direction. I don't want a tight rein. Hind quarter. That's it. Now just a little trivia. I taught this horse a long time ago to never push me around. If I invite him in, that's fine. But if I don't, he needs to stay there. And that way he'll always have me in both eyes. And he's in more of a schooling mode. If he's right over here on top of me, it's not good. You've got to get this space thing figured out. Now, when I get ready to teach him backing up really good off a field, he will have already been centered. Now, the man that asked me about Morgan horses, and it's funny to me that the Morgan horse comes up a lot in this discipline of riding, but you don't see very many Morgan horses. And from what I've seen, there's two types. There's ones that you can get on and go ride and cowboy on if you want, and then there's the ones that pull these fancy little carts that step really high. So I think there's two different disciplines. But incidentally, this horse is wanting to side pass or do rear and front end. So I need to get him to go past. His shoulder has to pass me. He doesn't understand, and he's done this before, but right now he's figuring out, he's waiting for me to ask him something else. That's why I'm unwinding his clock. But anyway, the Morgan horses out in California, within 100 miles of me, there was 3 ranches that had Morgan horses. Rolling Hill up in Tehachapi, that's all he had. And the interesting thing for me is that the cowboys that rode him really liked him. And what he did was he took 40 registered Morgan mares and turned them out on what's called the COSO. Now the Coso is the mountain range past this one behind me to the east. And that Coso back then let horses go all the way to Nevada towards Death Valley, and then they went north and south. But once again, about what I originally told you about wild horses, he introduced 40 registered Morgan mares. So half of those mares' children were horse colts, get it? So now these horse colts had to spread out to get their own band of mares. So that's how the true genetics of this wild horse thing happened. There goes my horse. And something that somebody else could tell me about, down in Long Beach, they've always had the mounted posse. And it's always been a big part of the Rose Parade. And when I was a kid, I always thought those were Morgan horses that they were riding with the silver saddles. So maybe somebody can enlighten me on that. Because I think there were guys that bred for Palomino Morgans. Maybe I'm dead wrong. There was a lot up in Santa Barbara, but those were supposedly out of thoroughbreds. Anyway, my friend Bob Snyder, who died a couple years ago in Wyoming, who was in the Cowboy Hall of Fame, and the unique thing about that is that a lot of times when you get these Cowboy Hall of Fames, it's a lot of guys that were rodeo champions. He wasn't. He was a pure D cowboy. And he told me when he was a little kid, he grew up on a place, and they called him a place because it wasn't a total big cow outfit, and it wasn't a pure D grain farm. But you had a pig, and you had a milk cow, and you had chickens, and you had chores and a garden, and you learned how to do all that stuff. But as soon as he could, he left home and went cowboying as a child. And then later on, he got to starting a lot of broncos. And he told me that the Morgan horse up in Wyoming, over on the east side of the west side of the Bighorns where he was, he said they were tough, real tough to start. But if you ever could get past one, you were really mounted well. And I've heard that a lot. And he also mentioned that they used to have a 50-mile and a 100-mile race in Wyoming. And there was always this big black Morgan, this guy'd show up and win it. So the Morgan's been a big part of the West. It's interesting that you just don't see them that much. So anyway, I want to tell everybody one more time how much Deb and I appreciate you getting a hold of us, because as you figured out by now, we're just regular people, all of us. I just happen to never shut up and get on film. But there's all kinds of people all the way across the country and the world that have horses and want to do a better job. And we're not going for the blue ribbon or the futurity or none of that. We just want to be mounted and go get the mail with some kind of dignity. So thanks a lot. And when you get a hold of us, please let me know where you're from, because it's interesting to me. Thank you.